Hi, everyone. In this episode, I want to talk about narcissistic injuries, what that means, and how a narcissist gets one. First, let me start by saying, in no way am I making this video to give people information to go out and try to seek revenge or injure a narcissist. You know, the only way to really induce an injury in a narcissist is by not giving them what they want. And ultimately, that is to not defend yourself. So the best defense against a narcissist is to not defend yourself. That's right. You heard me correctly. The best defense is to not defend yourself against them, because when you defend yourself against their accusations and their projections, you're giving them narcissistic supply. You're giving up your energy. You're giving up your peace. And that is what they're ultimately after. They're trying to get a reaction out of you. So no reaction is your best defense against them. That old saying, no response is the best response. It's absolutely correct when you're dealing with people like narcissists. So the way a narcissistic injury is created, and I briefly touched on this in another video, is when a narcissist is forced to face themselves. So if a narcissist is abusing you verbally, they're manipulating you, physically, whatever it is that they're doing, and they poke and they poke and they poke at you, and a person can only take so much before you react. And when you are being abused and psychologically manipulated by a narcissist nonstop, and you're fighting a trauma bond, once you finally react to the abuse, it's because your brain just can't take anymore. Your whole body, you're in constant fight or flight mode, and you just cannot withstand the pressure of this amount of abuse that they've just been compiling, just putting on you. So they do this intentionally. They poke at you and poke at you until they get a reaction out of you, because that is what they want. When a narcissist accuses you of something, what do? You start defending yourself against their accusations. And if you pay close attention, you'll understand that a narcissist accusations are actually confessions of what they're doing. So if a narcissist accuses you of cheating, it's because they're cheating, or they're thinking about cheating, or they're grooming someone behind you, to discard you. And then when they accuse you of something, oh, you're cheating, what do? No, I'm not. I'm not cheating. I'm not doing that. Why are you saying that? And then boom, they're in control. They're in control. They got a reaction out of you, and now everything is deflected away from them. But that's how the narcissist accusations are confessions. So when you start defending yourself against the things they say, let's say they're projecting onto you, which an accusation is nothing more than a projection. They start calling you bad names, stupid, a child. And what do? You're like, oh my God, why are you calling me those horrible bad names? And you start reacting. You start emotionally reacting. And that's exactly what a narcissist wants. When a narcissist runs a smear campaign on you and everyone thinks that you're the problem, what is it that people want to do? They immediately want to defend themselves. That's not true. I didn't say that. I didn't do that. They're lying. And then the narcissist is, remaining completely calm and cool while you're defending yourself, just reinforcing what they're saying about you, how unstable and crazy you are. Because the more you defend yourself, people look at you like, what? And so narcissist is getting narcissistic supply. Everything a narcissist engages in is meant to elicit a reaction and get narcissistic supply. They want to be in control of how people react to them, how people react to their abuse. So when it comes to a narcissistic injury, it's actually quite simple. When you do not react to a narcissist, when you do not give them what they want, or you give them the opposite reaction of what they were expecting out of you, it creates an injury. You become a mirror, and you reflect back to them everything that they don't want to see about themselves. So when a narcissist is projecting onto you and accusing you of things, and you don't engage and you don't react, it basically mirrors back to them, and they no longer have you to displace and project all that anger and rage onto. So if you're not internalizing their abuse, if you are not internalizing what they are throwing at you, if they're calling you stupid, if they're calling you bad names, and you refuse to internalize that and you just sit there and ignore it, It forces them to sit with themselves, because the only reason a narcissist is able to act one way in public is because they're able to abuse you in private, because you are internalizing all their inner turmoil and all their issues. So when you stop internalizing, when you start deflecting, and you don't internalize what they're doing to you, it forces them to face themselves and the fact that, oh my God, why aren't they reacting to my nonsense? Why aren't they reacting to my abuse? And that can cause them to rage sometimes. And that's where they start smear campaigning and throwing bigger tantrums. So when you don't internalize the narcissist's bad behavior that they're throwing at you, when you refuse to accept their manipulations, keep your boundaries up, and stand in your truth with all their gaslighting, and their crazy making, it gives them an injury. It gives them a severe injury because it forces them to face themselves. They are not able to regulate their emotions on their own. I said in another video that narcissists, they don't have any self-awareness. They have very little self-awareness, so they don't understand that all the nasty things that they're feeling inside are coming from within them, that they're creating that inside themselves. Those are unhealed wounds and traumas. So they think the external environment and you, now this is through unconscious defense mechanisms, but they also do things voluntarily, consciously. But when they're in their defense mechanisms, they really think that the external environment is creating the chaos that they're feeling inside. And that has a lot to do with the fact that narcissists require external validation in order to feel a level of existence. They need the external world, external things, and people to reflect back at them their greatness. That's why they're very superficial people. They need a lot of stuff. Fancy stuff, cars, boats, houses, fancy jobs, things like that, because they're only able to exist in a world that externally validates them. So when they're feeling internal disturbances and dysfunction inside, they just assume that is also coming from the external world or the person in their life, their intimate partner or someone around them. And that's when they'll attack. Now, those are, again, immature, primitive ego defense mechanisms. So they feel threatened and they're projecting all that onto you. And when you refuse to engage or you give them the opposite reaction of what they were hoping for, it causes an injury inside them. So the easiest, again, I'm not saying to go give, most of the time, none of us want to inflict injuries on them. And if you're in that place where you intentionally want to hurt somebody, then it's because you're not healed and you still got some work to do. But usually how narcissists sustain injuries, it's people don't even know they're doing it. And the next thing you know, the narcissist is punishing you and verbally abusing you and giving you silent treatments, and you don't even know why. Well, it's because they suffered an injury of some sort that you didn't even realize you gave them. And that is because you responded the opposite of what they were expecting you to respond, or you didn't respond at all to whatever nonsense they were throwing at you. So they got injured. You became a narcissistic mirror and forced them to face themselves when they do not have a person to displace or project all their internal rage and turmoil and wounds onto, and you do not internalize it. It forces them to internalize it. You send it back. It's like a return to sender. Return to sender. And so then they internalize it and it causes an injury. So, when they're attacking people, it's because they don't want to suffer any injuries. They don't want to feel any pain. They don't want to have to deal with anything inside of themselves. And again, because they're so superficial and require 100% external validation, they also think that everything they're feeling is coming from the external world. So if you want to create an injury in a narcissist, all you have to do is not defend yourself, not argue back, not engage, or just be yourself. But don't argue, don't engage, do not defend, remain completely calm, because they rely on your emotional reaction to project back at them their superiority over you, their ability to control you. So when you do not do that, when you do not internalize their projections, when you do not internalize their manipulations, when you do not internalize anything that they are throwing at you, because really all they're doing is releasing. They're emptying themselves out and expecting you to be a container and hold it for them. And that's, what I mean by internalization. So do not internalize it, which means that they don't have any place to, no container to dump themselves into, to empty themselves out into, so then it stays inside of them. And when a narcissist does not have someone to actively abuse, they have no one to help regulate their self-control, regulate their emotions. So then they're stuck with all that dysfunction and they're completely dysregulated. They absolutely need someone to internalize what's going on in them in order for them to regulate their emotions. So the less, narcissistic supply you give them, which is simply remaining calm, not engaging, not defending yourself against their accusations, it forces them to come face to face with who they are, because they're like, wait a minute, you mean if you're not reacting, this must be me? Yeah, it must be you, because it is you. But that's how you give them an injury. Do not internalize. So by that, you don't respond, you don't engage, or you give them the opposite reaction of what they want out of you. If they're trying to get you to fight, just smile, like, you're entitled to your opinion. You're feel free any way you want. If you can feel any way you want, narcissist. Just do not give them that emotional rage that they want back, because then that reinforces their superiority and control. And when you don't engage, they suffer an injury. Of course, sometimes they always get really crazy when they suffer an injury. They act out pretty terribly. So it's not something that I just, don't just go around like, ooh, there's a narcissist, and intentionally engage with them so that you can create an injury. Because the moment you engage with them, you're automatically giving them supply. Everything you say, you're giving them supply. Every time you acknowledge them and their nonsense, they're getting supply. So you just have to absolutely avoid them, no contact, gray rock. And that's how you induce an injury. Do not internalize everything that they are trying to throw onto you. They need you to be a container to hold all their emotions. That is the only way. They must empty themselves into another person in order for them to feel any sense of relief. And then they can breathe and then they can go be normal. That's why they're so calm after they abuse you. After a narcissist abuses you and then you finally react and they're calm, they're completely calm, or they can go right to sleep after screaming and yelling at you. And you're like, what? You're laying there like, how can you go to sleep after abusing me like that? Well, that's because now their emotions are regulated because they were able to empty themselves onto you, into you. Now you are the container holding their emotions and their trauma, and they're regulated and calm. So that is why after they abuse you, they can go be calm in front of other people, because you're like, man, 1 second, lickety split, you can be out in public with a narcissist and they'll pull you to the side and just verbally abuse you and destroy you, and then turn around at the next person and smile and be completely calm, and you're left in a state of trauma. Well, it's because they've emptied themselves into you. You've internalized it. Now they're regulated and you're holding all their trauma and emotional turmoil and dysfunction. And when you don't do that, when you refuse to be a container to hold all of that nonsense, they get an injury. So I hope you enjoyed this knowledge. I hope it helped. Stay strong, stay safe, keep getting the knowledge. You're all going to be amazing. Wherever you're at on your healing journey, just don't give up. Things will get better. I promise. Knowledge truly is power. The more you heal, the more you learn about yourself, and the more you're able to control yourself. See, you cannot master anyone else until you master yourself. So once you master yourself and you're able to master your own emotions, no one can affect you. And people know that. So take care, guys. Have a good day. Thanks for listening.